All right, welcome back to this week's weekly recap. Yeah, I took, let's see, 13 trades this week. So, a bit of an over trading week. However, we'll go over all of them and I'll explain to you guys why I lost them and why I took them and what my thought process was during them. I ended up making around $7,635 in total. That's across 13 accounts. So if you guys divide that by 13, it's only about $587 per account. So, essentially a break-even week, right? It wasn't the best of weeks. I had a very, very good first 3 weeks of August, and this last week was pretty mediocre, but hey, it happens, right? So, yeah, without further ado, let's just jump right into Monday. Let me get my little head out the way. So coming into Monday, we had this unfilled hourly fair value gap above us, right? So what I wanted to see at market open was, oh, there's a helicopter right over here. Price manipulate into the unfilled gap and then take out sell side down here. Okay, so I was leaning pretty bearish even though we were inside of a giant 4-hour fair value gap. If you guys want to see what that looks like, this is what it looks like. Hold on. So I wanted to come see a fill to these hourly fair value gaps up here and then at least go to equilibrium of this range. Let's see. This is the hourly, I believe. Yeah, so we didn't quite hit equilibrium and I'll explain my trade idea in 1 second. Okay, so what do? We came up and we took out sell side or this 1 hour fair value gap immediately. Okay, right out market open right here, instantly took that out. What else did we do? We then shit the bed. Okay, these are all 1 minute candles. These are giant 1 minute candles. So what do? Within the next 3 minutes, we shit the bed 50 points, right? We created a low. We trended back up and then ended up re-tapping into this 1 hour fair value gap one more time and then creating an SMT. Here is what ES looks like. Give me 1 second. As you guys can see, ES was higher, right? So 1 hour for value gap, internal SMT, and now what was I looking for? Well, I was just looking for another inversion to target this sell side down here. Why? Because overall, I truly was bearish. And on top of that, we have bearish confluences going in our direction. So what do we get? Well, we get this 2 minute for value gap that opens up. And what do? Well, I go ahead and enter off the version of the 2 minute. And this was took live in the Discord. I waited for a retap of this fair value gap. What ends up happening, this next candle gets a 2 minute tap. And then, actually, I believe it was this candle that ended up tapping me in right here. And my targets were these internal lows that were created at market open. So what ends up happening? Well, price trends down. I now move my stops to break even because we filled this 1 minute unfilled fair value gap. We actually ran through it. I had high conviction that we were going to go towards this low right here. We were only 5 points away. I got edged and, well, what ends up happening? Price ends up stopping me out at my break even. So that was trade number 1 on Monday. I ended up taking 2 more and you guys will see in 1 second. So I took a trade immediately after. Why? Well, because we had an SMT now with these internals right here. And on top of that, I was still pretty bearish. We came up, created another SMT. As you guys can see, that high does not get taken out, and this high does. So boom, we have another internal SMT, and now instead of 1 low, well, we have 2 lows down here. What is that? Relatively equal lows, okay? So what am I anticipating? I'm anticipating on price to continue lower. What do we have? We have a 1 minute inversion right here, right after that SMT. Happens with this candle. I enter off the closure of this candle, the opening in this candle, and as you guys can see, I got stopped out immediately after. Okay, what did price end up doing? Essentially just trading higher and higher and higher, creating all this low resistance liquidity. Holy shit, I might have to go to the 5 minute. And as price was trending higher, what were we creating? Well, we ended up taking out London highs right here. So let me just mark that out. We ended up taking out London highs and we ended up taking out Asia highs. And I'll show you where ES was in a second. Let me just get this off my screen. Okay, so we trended up and what did we end up leaving? Well, we left a unfilled 15 minute right here. We left, I believe that was in that general area. Was there any 5 minutes? There was this 5 minute all the way down here, but I wasn't expecting price to retrace that low. Just because that was improbable. But we had all this low resistance liquidity sitting right here as well, along with like equal lows and shit. So we ended up creating a SMT with session highs, and then we ended up getting an internal SMT. So I wasn't really looking to trade due to the time, like it's 11:30. However, once I realized that ES was nowhere near previous session highs, right? We're edging London, but we're nowhere near it. And then Asian is all the way up here, okay? And then we've been trading up for a decent amount of time, creating low resistance liquidity, and then also leaving unfilled gaps. So the session SMTs were not enough conviction, but once I seen we got an internal SMT as well, as you guys can see, what is this? The 1122 high ended up getting swept out. And then where is the 1122 high on here? The 1122 high ends up creating just equal highs all around right here. So what is that? It didn't get swept out, so it's an SMT. So now we have three bearish SMTs along with a unfilled gap below us. Okay, I went ahead and entered off of, what did I enter off of? I believe there was a 30-second inside of here that I took, and I have the 30-second chart on Top Step. So I entered off the candle closure of that and stops at the SMT highs, take profit to the unfilled 15-minute right here. And what does price end up doing? Goes right to my take profit, and then we continue, I believe, higher on the day. Yeah, just higher and higher, right? But at this point in time, I was already out the market. So that was Monday. 1 win, 1 loss, 1 break even on Monday. I ended up finishing Monday green. Let's see how much so I was positive 248 on Monday. So let's jump on over to Tuesday. Tuesday was one of my red days on the week. Tuesday, I took 5 trades, which is absolutely disgusting. 2 losses, 3 break evens. So my max typically is like 3 trades a day. But once I hit that 2 loss mark, I'm done. I don't care how many trades I take. If I only take 2 and they're both losses, I'm done. So 2 is my max amount of losses. However, this is why I took this continuation short pre-market. Took 2 of them. So let's mark this out real quick, right? So we're inside of this fair value gap right here, right? We're inside of this 15-minute. And then I believe there was a 30-minute as well. Yeah, we were inside of the 30-minute as well, right here. Okay, so let's jump on down to the first trade. What's going on? Well, we're inside of the 15-minute. What do we get? Well, we have an Asian, or not Asian, sorry. We have a London SMT. As you guys can see, where's London highs on here? London has yet to get taken out on ES. And London got took out on Nasdaq. So we have an SMT with London highs. And on top of that, what kind of model are we in? Well, this is a classic just continuation model. Why? Because what do? We end up coming down, coming into this 15-minute and 30-minute gap. And then what's below us? We have sell side, we have London, and we have an Asian all the way down here. Okay, so it clear targets below. Good, like a little accumulation on the 15-minute and then manipulation higher. What do we get? Well, we get a tap into the 30-minute. And then what do we get coming out of the 30-minute? Well, we get a 2-minute inversion right here. So what do I go ahead and do? Jesus Christ. I go ahead and enter off the 2-minute inversion. Why? Because we ran through it with speed. And, well, what do we have? We have sell side, we have London, and we have Asian all the way down here. So I also like the RR on this trade. It was a 5, 7, 8, which is fucking ridiculous. Typically, I would go for a 1-to-1, 1 to 1.5. However, I was risking pennies to the dollar on this trade. As you guys can see, my stop loss was only 9.25 points. So I wasn't really worried about the risk. We had a good continuation model. I went ahead and entered. My break-even point was going to be this internal low right here. And yeah, I essentially got stopped out fucking immediately. Well, what ends up happening right after that? I went ahead and re-entered. Now, I don't really trade pre-market, but I like the draw and I like what was going on. Okay, we ended up creating an SMT with these highs right here. As you guys can see, this high did not end up get swept out, or did not end up getting swept out. Sorry, I'm a fucking idiot. And then what do we have right after that? Well, there was I believe a 30-second inside of here. Yeah, there was a 30-second inside of this little accumulation zone right here. I went ahead and entered out the 30-second. Why? Well, because, dude, look at this RR on this trade. A 1 to 14.35. So, again, I was risking pennies to the fucking dollar. I think in total, I only risked like $200 across both of these trades combined, and my take profit had a pretty solid amount, right? So I wasn't really stressing if I did lose, and I did like the setup. It's not like I was forcing these trades. And what ends up happening? Well, we end up running lower and lower, and then, well, price just starts to chop. So I had my stop loss still up here, but as soon as I seen that we were about to enter market open, I moved my stops to break even. Why? Well, because you guys know how market open is. Market opens and the fucking candle just goes like this, okay? So move my stops to break even. And as you guys can see, what did I just say? Market opens and we just fucking create this Spider-Man wick, right? Look at this 930 candle right here. It's literally just Spider-Man. So what has stopped me out? I got stopped out at break even on that trade. And what do we end up doing? We end up continuing higher. Give me 1 second. We have this accumulation zone, and then we end up continuing higher towards where? Well, we take out Asian highs. We now have an Asian SMT. What are we doing on here? ES came and took out London, but has not taken out Asia, right? So Asia is still all the way the fuck up here. So we know we now have an Asian SMT that's going to be our high time frame bias. Okay, what is my draw still? My draw is still London lows. As you guys can see, my draw was London lows on this other trade too. I really wanted London lows. We had a nice accumulation zone. We manipulated higher at market open. We took out Asian highs, creating an Asian SMT. So in my personal opinion, this was an A+ setup. And what do we end up getting? I believe, was it a 1 minute or was it a 2 minute? Oh, there was a 3 minute. Oh, there's a 4 minute. Oh, fuck. Okay, I don't think I entered off any of this. What did I enter off of? So we ended up getting a resweep, rejecting this 4 minute, and then we got a 2 minute right here. Okay, so we were respecting this 4 minute. We ended up coming up, resweeping out these highs right here. No SMT was created, but this Asian SMT is still holding. And then we got a 2 minute inversion to the downside. I was targeting London lows, and what ends up happening? We have this nice accumulation, manipulation, distribution. My stops are at break even, and well, I got fucking edged again for the second day in a row. So again, not the best price action, but the losses I took were completely my fault, right? So Monday, we got edged by 5 points from our dub, and this day we got edged by 11. Although I should have just took profits because, if you guys see, this was way over a 1-to-1, and typically that's all I take. But I wouldn't say I was being greedy because I had a valid draw on liquidity, right? I had a reason why I was going into this trade. I wasn't just focused on the money. I actually didn't care about the money, right? Because if I did, I would have just closed somewhere down here. But oh, okay, I'm up a certain amount, whatever. No, I wanted to see London get taken out because that was my draw on liquidity for today. So what ends up happening? Well, we end up reversing. I get stopped out at break even. It is what it is. What do we get? We get another accumulation zone. We get an SMT with this high over here, which is what? I believe it is a 1 hour high. Yeah, we get a SMT with this 1 hour high, also inside of this 1 hour for value gap. So again, I still have bearish confluence, but I guess I should have seen how price was reacting, right? But I still like this draw because why? We had London lows right here. We had now relatively equal lows with London, and then we had Asian still lower. Again, we had this nice accumulation zone. What do? We manipulated higher, creating an SMT with that 1 hour high. And then we got a 30-second inversion in here. Again, I like the RR on this trade. And as you guys can see, I got stopped out almost immediately. So what does that bring me? I'm now 2 break-evens and 2 losses on the day. I wasn't looking to trade again. However, what ends up happening? We end up We end up generating all this low resistance liquidity. What do? We come up and resweep out these highs. As you guys can tell, ES is still down here. We have an SMT still with Asian highs, along with this 1 hour for value gap. So we still have a double SMT on the higher time frame. We get another 30-second inversion. Okay, my stops are at these highs. My break-even point is at these internal lows. And what are we trying to do? Well, we are trying to catch this move down to equal lows right here, which was actually my break-even point on the first trade. So if we come back here, what do we have? We have equal lows, which was going to be my break-even point, and I was going to be targeting these London lows. And what was also our equal low area? Well, it was a unfilled 3 minute for value gap. So it was a valid break-even point. price fucking edged it. I didn't get to move my stops break even. Why? Because my area did not get hit. So there's no reason for me to do it. I'm not going to do it emotionally. I'm going to do it strategically. And it didn't get hit, so I got stopped out. Like I said, there's a reason why I enter every single trade, and that was the reason. So those equal lows were my target for this trade as well. My break-even point was going to be this internal low. We got a 30-second inversion. I go ahead and enter. Almost get stopped out. SMT still holding. Continue lower and lower. And we take out this low, and I get stopped out at break even. So that was my final trade on the day for me. Why? Because what ends up happening? Well, actually, I don't know if this ended up getting to go. Yeah, these equal lows ended up getting edged as well. So everything was just getting edged early on this week. And yeah, that was it on Tuesday. So Tuesday was 0 wins, 2 losses, 3 break even. That brings me on the week to what? 1 win, 3 losses, and 4 break even. So it wasn't a hot start to the week, but it is what it is. That's what happens, right? So let's jump on over to Wednesday. Okay, so regarding Wednesday, what do we have? The only draw really with our session was we had Asian highs up here. Everything else already got taken out. Okay, so what do? Well, we leave Asia highs, no SMT, and we trend down. Okay, when we trend down, what do we leave? Well, we leave an unfilled 15-minute fair value gap right here. We have 15-minute highs right here. And on top of that, what else do we have? A whole bunch of low resistance liquidity right here that is yet to get taken out, okay? So market opens, and what do? We take out this low, creating an SMT. So we actually had an SMT going like this. I know this looks very confusing, but this low ended up getting taken out. And we had, give me 1 second. Jesus Christ, this is crazy. We had an SMT like this. So we took out those 15-minute intermediate lows. The only thing I didn't like about this first trade was we had a unfilled 15-minute at our stop loss. Okay, so this other line right here is a 15-minute fair value gap. But what do we have? Okay, we had this accumulation zone. We manipulated lower, taking out that 15-minute low. And then what do we end up getting? Well, we ended up getting a 1-minute inversion right here. With this candle. And how do we react with it after getting in this internal SMT? As you guys can see, let's go over this internal SMT real quick. This 929 candle gets swept out on Nasdaq, and what happens on ES? Well, this 929 candle does not get swept out on ES. So internal SMT, we have a 15-minute SMT. On top of that, we get a 1-minute inversion with accumulation zone highs. We have this intermediate high, we have these 15-minute highs, and then we have this unfilled 15-minute fair value gap. Okay. So I enter off the inversion, and then after I enter, price literally just starts chopping around. So my break even point was either going to be this intermediate high right here, or ES filling, I believe it was a 15-minute gap. Yeah, it was, or ES filling this 15-minute gap, which was also a 30-minute fair value gap. So whatever happened first, I was moving stops to break even. ES ended up taking out that gap, so my stops were now at break even. And what ended up happening? At that point in time, Nasdaq was like right here. I moved stops to break even, and what ends up happening? Well, it ends up being a W break even trade. Why? Because price ended up reversing. Why did price reverse? ES was in a bearish fair value gap, and Nasdaq, well, just started chopping around a little bit. What was beneath us on Nasdaq? We had, let me get rid of this internal SMT because there's just too many fucking drawings on the screen. Well, we end up coming down, filling this unfilled 15-minute fair value gap. That was our stop loss. Okay. And then this SMT right here with these 15-minute lows was still holding. So from there, what else do we have? We also have this accumulation zone now that was building up in our first trade. We manipulate lower, filling that unfilled fair value gap. And then as you guys can tell, these 930 lows, so 931 ended up getting swept out. And then 930 did not end up getting swept out on ES. So even though ES was inside of a bearish 15-minute fair value gap, overall I was still pretty bullish. Why? Because we had all this liquidity right here that is yet to be swept out. We had these 15-minute these 15-minute intermediate highs. we had this 15-minute unfilled gap, and then we had these 5-minute highs right here as well. Along with that, we have a 15-minute SMT, we have a 15-minute fair value gap, we have an internal SMT now. So all I was waiting on was an inversion of a fair value gap to then enter. Okay, I didn't like this 1 minute just off the way price was reacting. Yeah, we came down, but I still wasn't confident. Okay, what else did we have? We had this 3-minute that was above us. Maybe it was a 4-minute. What was the 5-minute? Oh yeah, we had this unfilled 5-minute above us, so that is why I didn't take the 1 minute. And on top of that, I also realized that I was rushing trades Monday and Tuesday, and then also I kind of rushed this one. Why? Right? Why? Well, because we had the unfilled 15-minute gap at our stop loss. So if I did want to see us go long, I should have at least waited for that unfilled 15-minute gap to get hit first. So that was a mistake on my part. Thank God I went break even when I did strategically. So all I'm waiting for now is this 5-minute to get inverse, and then I'm going ahead and entering. So next candle, the 5-minute gets inverted. I set a limit order at this 1 minute fair value gap right here. I actually didn't end up getting tapped in. I don't know why. It did not fill me on my trading view, but it filled me on my top step. So I ended up entering off of the rejection of the gap. So I got an entry point right here, and this was actually wrong. I ended up entering off of this candle. And what were my targets? Well, what do we have? Now we have these accumulations on highs. Okay. What else do we have? Let's go to the 5-minute. We have, which these were also 5-minute intermediate highs. We had these 5-minute highs right here, these 15-minute highs, and this unfilled 15-minute gap. Okay, so what ends up happening? Enter off the 5-minute, we get chopped around a little bit. And then boom. We get our break-even point hit, which was these intermediate highs. Take that off. And I ended up exiting this trade on top step at these 15-minute highs right here, because that's all I needed to secure a payout. So I was perfectly fine with that. And then on top of that, I ended up exiting on here on trading view for my other 8 accounts, because ES came and took out Asian highs. So I told myself, whatever gets taken out first, if Asia highs gets taken out on ES first, I'll manually close. Or if Nasdaq takes out this 15-minute gap that was our draw on liquidity, then I will just exit the trade, right? I won't have to do anything manually, because that was our take profit, and our take profit ended up getting smacked, and then we ended up just getting chopped around for the rest of the session. Now, someone asked me in my Discord, was this 1 minute long valid towards Asia highs? And I told him no, for a different amount of reasons, right? So we came down and tapped this 5-minute fair value gap right here. Here, let me move this trade. Let me get this shit out the way. So we ended up coming down and tapping this 5-minute gap right here. Okay. From there, what ends up happening? We end up getting a 1 minute inversion out of it, targeting these highs that were created and targeting Asian. Now, why isn't this valid? Well, because look how premium it is, right? We come up and essentially create this giant leg up, right? Equilibrium is right here. So if I wanted to enter this trade, I would want to see a fair value gap get hit at or near equilibrium. So this is the only 5-minute fair value gap. What else is there? It's also a 15-minute, but is it at or near equilibrium? No, it's way too fucking premium. Okay, so if anything, I would want to see this 15-minute get hit right here, which is also a 5-minute. So that would give me a lot more confirmation, right? Because then we would have a decent leg down. And how does price move? Well, price moves in stair steps. It moves like this, right? So if we make a great expansion move up and then only retrace this much, well, that's not really high probability. Why? Because price can just retrace at any moment, go to equilibrium, and then possibly go to your take profit area. So that is why this 1 minute was not valid. And on top of that, we also had an SMT with Asia highs. Okay, so you're trying to long against a session SMT, which is a high time frame SMT, and that is just not the smartest idea. And especially after price just made, how big of a move was this? Made a 128-point move to the upside, and then you see it start to move like this. It's probably not the best of ideas to enter. We ended up forward testing this in the Discord with them, because they asked it live, right? So this would have been the trade idea. This was our break-even point. Okay, so what ends up happening? Price is essentially just moving sideways. We would still be in the trade. Why? Because nothing has gotten hit yet, and I'm just not sitting through this. This is something I would not want to sit through, and then you would have ended up getting stopped out. So that is why this trade idea was invalid. Why? Because it was way too premium. Just the way price was moving, right? Look at what time of day it was too. It was kind of towards 11 o'clock, and we also had an Asian S&T going against our bullish execution. Oh fuck, what am I doing? So that being said, let's move on over to Thursday. I did not take a trade Thursday, and I'll tell you guys why. Okay, so jumping on over to Thursday. Wednesday afternoon, we had, I think, Palantir earnings or some shit like that. Something with fucking, I don't know, the stock market. But we ended up creating this crazy data news candle. Okay, so we're essentially inside of this box right now. Don't worry about these S&Ts. This is for Friday's trade. Okay, so just completely disregard that. So what I wanted to see was, okay, we were trending higher. We were creating lows right here, lows right here, lows right here, and then we also had this data news candle low. So what I wanted to see data highs get taken out, and then we can short towards this low down here. Okay, and where is ES? ES, same shit, right? Took out the data high. Okay, now what I want to see get taken out next? I want to see this data low get taken out. What ends up happening? We take out the data highs right off market open. What I wanted to see was a tap into a 5 or 15 minute fair value gap and then continue lower. So what do we get? We get a tap into a fair value gap right here that is at or near equilibrium for a continuation model, right? Here we go. And then I would want to see this 5 minute get inverted. So essentially we are just bouncing between two PD arrays. So if I was truly bearish on the day, okay, cool. We're going to come up, respect this 5 minute gap. We already inverse this one. Now we're going to retrace into this one and then possibly invert this 5 minute gap right here to continue lower for these lows, these lows, these lows, and data lows. Okay, so we had draws on liquidity lower. Well, what ends up happening, we end up respecting this 5 minute gap. We end up respecting this 5 minute gap. So respecting both bearish and bullish PD arrays. And then we end up just trending higher. So I was like, okay, maybe we want to come and take out this high right here. What am I waiting on? Well, I'm waiting on a continuation model to open up. I'm not just going to enter because I see price running. No, there has to be a reason for me to enter. So I'm waiting for price to do something like this towards these highs up here. And what do we end up getting? Well, no fucking retracement. We end up taking it out. I don't even know if we created an SMT. Oh, we did create an SMT. We had a 5 minute inversion right here. And I guess there was a gap model. But at that point in time, it was just way too late. It was already 11:20. I was already off the charts. I wasn't really looking to trade, right? If you guys wanted to take this 5 minute inversion, okay, let's go short off the 5 minute inversion. What will your confluences be on this trade? The fucking RR is dog shit on this trade anyway. But you would have had a SMT with these highs right here. 5 minute inversion. And then you could have targeted this unfilled 5 minute gap as a take profit area. Now, look at the RR on this trade. Absolute dog shit, which was also a 15 minute. So it was a good draw on liquidity, but just the RR was absolutely horrible. And yeah, that basically sums up Thursday. It was a pretty quick Thursday. No trade Thursday for me. So total on the week, I still only have, those 2 wins, like 4 losses and like 4 break even, or 3 losses and 4 break even. So pretty mediocre week. I was still up on the week, around $8,000 per account, so around $13,000. And then Friday came along. And so on Friday we had 8:30 red folder. So that was the only reason why I was in the market pre-market. I took 1 pre-market trade and 3 normal trades. And we'll go from, again, 2 losses, 2 break even on Friday. I ended up finishing the week positive, and I'll show you guys my P&L. I don't know how I finished this week positive, but 1 good win can mitigate fucking 3 losses. So just keep that in mind. Next time you're on a losing streak, just stay calm and composed, okay? Because this wasn't the best of week for me. And then I looked at my accounts and I was like, I actually made money this week, even though I didn't really fucking feel like it. So we had data highs right here, and we had data lows, right? So whatever gets taken out first, I'll be targeting the other one. What do we have? We have this nice accumulation zone. And what do we get right here? We actually end up trending down into what? Into a 15-minute fair value gap, which at that point in time was a fair value gap SMT. ES did not come and take it out. As you guys can see, here's ES. ES actually created equal lows. So it did not go into the fair value gap. What do we end up getting out of it? Well, we come up and get a, sorry, I don't know why I blinked out. There was a 30-second in here. Okay. My break-even point was these equal highs at the accumulation zone, and then my take profit was these data highs. So we get a 30-second after creating this 15-minute fair value gap SMT. I'm looking for a just nice little continuation model to data highs. And what ends up happening? Well, take out my break-even point, and what happens with the very next candle? Maybe 3 candles from there. I ended up getting stopped out. So W break-even again. Right, this SMT was really the reason why I entered. We had a 15-minute fair value gap, and then on top of that, the SMT added to my conviction. I like the equal highs right here. I like the data highs as a draw. However, price, like I said, every loss is on me, never the market's fault. But price was moving a little weird this week, right? I got edged on Monday and Tuesday of high draws on liquidity, and then we got edged on Friday as well. Or not really edged, but like we didn't really, I mean, I guess you can say edge. It was only 11 fucking points of data highs as well. So price was moving pretty odd this week, but like I said, it's no one's fault other than mine for losing. And what do we end up doing? Well, we end up leaving the fucking data highs, okay, and just shitting the bed. We came all the way down to the data lows. Give me 1 second. And then we ended up creating an SMT with this low right here, which was a 15-minute low, I believe, and then this 30-minute low. Okay. From there, what did we leave? Well, we took out data lows. We now have a 15-minute SMT and a 30-minute SMT, and we left a unfilled 5-minute gap right here. Now, I know what you guys are saying, but there's a 5-minute gap right here. This has not been made yet. Okay, this candle was still fluctuating. What do we end up getting? We end up getting a 1-minute inversion, and I ended up getting just a little bit late of an entry. We inverted the gap, and then price immediately shit the bed. I was like, oh cool, it's retracing just a little bit. We opened low, let's see a high close, and I got stopped out immediately. We also had this internal SMT. Okay, so we had a triple SMT and a 1-minute inversion. As you guys can see, these 940 lows ended up getting taken out by 941, and then these 940 lows did not end up getting taken out by 941. So we had another internal SMT. Why did I lose this trade? So I didn't realize it at first, but we had a fucking 3-minute fair value gap right here that would have been my break-even point that I didn't realize. So completely my fault again. No one to blame but me. Okay, if we inverted this 1-minute gap without taking out this 3-minute first, that 3-minute would have been my break-even. However, I didn't even realize the 3-minute was there. So this is me just lacking like just basic fucking focus. Okay, I wasn't focused. What ends up happening? Well, we ended up actually tapping into it. Even though we inverted this 1 minute, we tapped into the 3-minute. We ended up rejecting the fucking 3-minute. And that was the reason why I lost that trade. I didn't understand why I lost and got stopped out immediately for that trade. Like I said, I'd risked pennies on this. It was only $13 fucking dollars. But at the same time, it was like, it could have been avoided if I was just paying attention, right? So there's always time to learn from your losses. Even though we had bullish conviction with the triple SMTs and the 1-minute inversion, we ended up tapping into a 3-minute gap, and that ended up respecting it on the charts. So price didn't have to go to this 5 minutes. So that is the reason why I lost. I am now 1-1 on the day, 1 break even, 1 loss. Let's move on to these next trades. So Nasdaq ended up trading down, taking out the London lows from yesterday's session, and what do we end up creating? Well, we created a unfilled 15-minute gap right here, and on top of that we had this unfilled 5-minute right here. Okay, so we had clear draws above for our take profit target, and we also had these 1-minute highs right here. Okay, so we come down and tap London. We ended up getting a 30-second inversion. This is my break-even point. Fuck, I forgot what it was. Oh, there's this 3-minute fair value gap. Boom. Here we go again with these 3-minute fair value gaps, okay? If we truly are going to see a valid retracement, why am I looking for a retracement? Well, because we just shit the bed 145 points without any retracement. Okay, we came down and take London lows. We get a 30-second inversion. 3 minute is above us. Price taps 3 minute and then stops us out at break even and ends up continuing to shit the bed. Okay, so I learned from my first mistake with 3 minute. I ended up getting it. What is a common theme throughout this entire week? I'm taking 30-second inversions and they're just not working. This is why you journal, because I went back in my journal at the end of the week and I was like, okay, even though I'm up on the week, I didn't have the greatest week. What can I change? Well, I entered like 5 trades this week off 30 seconds and only won one of them. So with that being said, I'm now going to be a lot more cautious and a lot more picky with the 30-second inversions I pick. Okay. Unfilled 15-minute, unfilled 5-minute. Another break even. Okay. So now we're 2 break evens and 1 loss on the day. We come down. We take out previous session Asian lows. And then this is the data lows we were talking about from the previous day when Palantir earnings came out or whatever. Okay. What is now getting created? We now have an unfilled 5-minute right here as well. So I'm still looking for the gap model towards this gap right here, right? Okay. We come down. We take out those data lows. We get another 30-second in here. Somewhere in here. It looks something like this actually. Okay. I waited for a retap of the inversion. I got a tap of the inversion right here. And this 1 minute high was my break-even point. I ended up getting fucking stopped out by a smidge. And then look what price ended up doing. Ended up running towards the 5-minute unfilled gap. So I actually just closed my laptop after this. I looked at it, I smiled, I laughed, and I was like, you know what? I want to enjoy my Friday. Fuck this. Okay. So even though I got stopped out, the trade idea ended up working out. We ended up just getting a resweep of that low. Both assets did. And price ended up running towards it. What can you do, right? So not only did I get edged 3 times this week of a dub, well, I also just got stopped out and then watched price run to my TP. So it wasn't the best of weeks regarding my luck, but it also wasn't the best of weeks regarding my executions as well. So that being said, there's a lot for me to learn regarding this week. What can I learn from? Well, be a lot more selective with my 30-second inversions. Pay more attention when it comes to unfilled fair value gaps around our entry point. Okay. And overall, just be more patient. I was trying to rush trades. I took, I think, 4 pre-market trades this week. And typically, I literally never even trade pre-market. So a couple of things for me to work on going into September, because this was the last week of August. But it is what it is, right? We can always take our losses as a lesson. And that's really the only way to grow as a trader, because as soon as you start beating yourself up over losses like I used to, well, it does nothing but just fuck with your mental, right? So I'm looking back at these losses now like, oh, they were fucking silly losses, whatever. Some of them were great executions and we just got break even. It is what it is. Time to move on, right? So that was all the trades I took this week. Here is my P&L. Where's my top set? Here's my P&L, right? Week 5, ended up making around $513 across all these accounts. So just times that by 13 roughly. My TradingView accounts had a little more in them. I think I ended up making around $590 per account. So I brought my fucking average this week to about like $580 across 13 accounts. But with that being said, let's jump on over to Forex Factory and check out the news for the upcoming weekend. So we get a long 3-day weekend this week, right? We have Labor Day on Monday, so nothing happening on Monday. Tuesday, we have 10 a.m. red folder. So I'll be looking for a setup prior to news, but I'm going to be, again, very selective. I prefer to trade after news already comes out, right? So most likely, I will be waiting until 10 a.m. happens. However, if the A+ setup presents itself, then it presents itself and I'll enter. And once news comes out, I'll just move stops to break even, right? It is what it is. That's just how I trade news and it just works, right? Same thing for Wednesday, okay? Wednesday, we have jolts at 10 a.m. So again, I won't be necessarily looking for an entry prior to news, but if it presents itself, I'll go ahead and take it. I would prefer definitely just to wait after news to enter though. Thursday. What do we have? We have red folder at 8:15. We have red folder at 8:30. And we also have red folder at 10. So after 8:30 news comes out, I'll be in the market, pre-market. The opportunity presents itself. Cool, we'll enter. If we take out data highs, create a data high SMT, we have data lows still. We see price reject off that area. Okay, cool. Or vice versa. We take out the lows, create a low SMT, and then target the highs. Okay, so I'm going to be a lot more selective with the entries I take this week. However, again, if the opportunity does present itself, I'll go ahead and take it. If nothing presents itself pre-market and 9:30 is kind of choppy, I'll wait till 10 a.m. opens, wait for 10 a.m. news to come out, and then look for the same thing when 10 a.m. comes out. And then Friday we just have red folder at 8:30. So you guys know how I trade red folder pre-market, wait for news to come out, look for an entry pre-market. If nothing presents itself, then we'll just wait for market open and then target the data highs, data lows, whatever got taken out and whatever didn't. Okay, so that's how I'm approaching this upcoming week. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. This video will be dropping on Sunday. So with that being said, you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy your Monday. Fuck trading. And I'll catch y'all boys Tuesday with a daily advice and live trading.